Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So, these are the three articles that we will be discussing today. The first article is a sector that needs to be nursed back to health. So, this article reiterates the importance that the nursing sector or the midwifery have played in the important role that they have played in the COVID-19 scenario, and why and how we will be dealing with this problem, and why is it necessary for us to incentivize more people to join this force. Second, hazardous ideas for the Himalayas. This talks about the cons basically that are attached with the construction of the huge ambitious dam project that has recently been announced by China, which it would be developing or making on the Brahmaputra River, which lies on the Chinese side. So, what are the repercussions of that? We'll be discussing in here. And thirdly, we have innovations for clean air. So, as the name itself is suggesting, it says that what innovations can we adopt in order to get a cleaner air, because as we know we are currently facing a huge problem of air pollution. And fourthly, we have news and flash column. So if you're preparing for judicial services examination, you can definitely have a look at the lord of the courses, which is LawSikho's judiciary test prep course. So from here you can get a very good start for your preparation for judicial services exam, and from the landing page, which the link to which is there in the description box, you can download free study material as well. Then we are excelling into various other courses like CLAT, Bar Hacker, like for the All India Bar exam, etc. You can have a look at them too. So this is the multiple choice question from yesterday's, and that is that by that we mean by Saturday's discussion. What is PM Vani? A new agricultural scheme, a public Wi-Fi access network interface, reform in the PDS, that is public distribution system, or none of the above? You can write down your answer in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question for the day. Regulation of nursing education requires a dedicated and concerted effort. With reference to various lacuna in nursing education, suggest measures to reform it. So once you're done with this article, you'll definitely be able to crack this question. So let's begin with the very first article, which itself is about the nursing education. 2020 has been designated as International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife. So basically, nurse and midwife, these are two forms of, the helping people of the hospital system, or the entire health system, which actually play a very important role, because whenever we go to a hospital, it is the nurse, or it may be a male member or a female person, and the midwife who actually take care of the patient, who they regulate the temperatures, the blood pressures, and every other readings that are to be taken by the patients. They also regulate the timings when the medicines are to be taken. So in a way, they are the ones who actually follow the instructions given by the doctor, and they ultimately take care of our health when we are hospitalized in any kind of medical institute or hospital. So as we know that even in the times of COVID-19, nurses and midwife have played such an important role, because obviously it is not practically possible and feasible for a complete doctor to visit and to understand each and every point of every stage of every patient. And that is why in such a regard, the nurses have come very handy, and they have played a very significant and positive role in helping the patients even in the times of COVID-19. So India's nursing workforce is 2/3 of its health force. So just understand, like for example, if we have 100 people who are working entire in our health force or our health sector, then the nurses amount for 66 people out of the entire 100 people, which means 2/3 of the entire health force is comprised of the nurses in India. So the ratio of 1.7 nurses per 1,000 population, and it is still 43% less than the WHO norm. So though we might think that this 2/3 of part of the health force is a very huge number per se, so all in all, it definitely seems to be a large number, because out of 166 are the nurses. But as compared to the number of patients that we see in our hospitals in India, this number of nurses is still very less, and it is 43% less than the WHO or the World Health Organization norm, which has been provided. So that is why it is very much important that we raise awareness about this career first of all, and that we incentivize people to join this health force in the forms of being nurses or midwiferys. So let's understand that what are the challenges to the nursing education. Firstly, uneven regulation. So basically, the nursing education system is very much unevenly regulated. So due to this, 91% of educational institutions, private and weakly regulated. So basically, they are either private institutions or they are very weakly regulated at all. Now, due to this, what happens is that many people who are in a way interested to join this workforce in the health sector are not able to join in because maybe they're not able to join the fees for this entire course for being a nurse, or there are not the relevant avenues which are available to them. So that is why government intervention over here is very much required, that the areas, and specifically if we talk about the rural areas where the employment is very important even for the women or the female sector, to give them economical independence and also a better standard of living. Nursehood or the nursing or midwifery is a very good career in that regard, because it is not only safe, also it is a very decent career as compared to other, and it does not have that difficult challenges, because many a times in rural areas the women are not able, or they're not even allowed to do odd jobs, many kinds of odd jobs. But nurses and this kind of workforce is really very much but it's a potential workforce for them. So that is why the government should make sure that better participation of the enrollments, like the people who want to get enrolled into these courses of nursing, should be there, and that is why it should not be so much of only depending upon the private institutions. Then the current education is outdated. Now this is a problem with, I suppose, the entire education system of India, not just being with the nursing education or just the medical education or the Ayurveda education, even all of the kinds of education, even in the legal field, the engineering field, there is lack of practical essence. So we many a times depend, and we many a times pay greater attention on giving the theoretical knowledge as compared to the medical or the practical knowledge. Many a times you must have seen that there are various hospitals that also, and mostly these are the government hospitals, which are not only the hospitals but are also medical institutions. So they themselves make sure that the nurses who are pursuing a course in their hospital also get a chance to do practical learning through working in the very same hospital. So that is a very good step, which actually teaches them the practical know-hows of their profession. But still, the majorly the current education system in the nursing part is outdated. Then insufficient postgraduate courses to develop the skills in specialties and address critical faculty shortages. Now this is a very important point that has been raised in the article, and that many a times there are various critical faculty shortages. Now I'll give you a very simple example for this, but please do not take it as a very legitimate example, but just to make you understand. You all must have watched the movie Kabir Singh. So in the movie, when we had seen that the main lead hero, who was also a surgeon, he actually he fainted due to high doses of intoxication that he had taken. But still, on his command, the nurses, the head nurses, and the other, the two or three nurses, they were there, they were able to perform and successfully conclude the operation. Now this was possible only because they had the appropriate knowledge of working with the equipments and to take up the crisis situation and work efficiently in such regard. Now just imagine that the doctor is not available. Not just this case, let's imagine that a doctor is not at all available, and the nurses themselves knew nothing about any critical handling of the emergency situations. So definitely it might cost even life to another person. So that is why we need to have sufficient postgraduate courses that would help to develop them greater skills and specialities, and that would be very handy when it comes to handling critical faculty shortages in the health sector. And then 62% education institutions are in southern India only. So this also is a very surprising element, that 62% of the education institutions that deal with the nursing education are in the South India, and in northern, northeastern, or western part of India there are not very significant or very good institutions for nursing education, which also needs to be addressed. Then the next problem is gaps in education and services. So once many a times this also happens that they're educated but there are no proper jobs available to them, and many times it happens that they're overqualified for a particular job. Both the situations are very disastrous. So many a times there is, as we said, there is lack of the job differentiation, and sometimes it happens, what happens is that the specialized or higher qualification of postgraduates are underutilized because we do not have a health sector of such type which can accommodate such skilled nurses or midwiferys. So this also is a major problem. Now, let's just have a look at the laws that govern the nursing education or the entire nursing regime in India. Indian Nursing Act, but it does not provide any policy guidance on the scope of their practice or standards of care. So it's just like, it is not very intricately dealing with the nitty-gritties of the nursing profession. And also we have the Consumer Protection Act, which protects the rights and safety of patients as consumers, holds only doctor and hospital for medical legal issues. So basically nurses are not accountable in here. Also, you might have read about medical negligence. In that regard also, nurses many a times are not held negligent, medically negligent. The doctors or the hospitals might be taken up to it, but the nurses are not. So due to which the nurses many a times they do not pay attention towards their job. Many times they sleep during their working hours. So these are the things that need to be taken care of. So these are the steps which are needed. We should amend the Indian Nursing Council Act 1947, incentivized to pursue the advanced degrees in nursing education, and we can also move to public private partnership for nurse education, because as we said, mostly the education institutions are private in nature, so the public institutions can also get a good deal over here. With this, let's discuss the next article for the day, which talks about hydropower projects in Himalayas. Basically, both China and India have recently announced hydropower projects on the Yarlung Zangbo River, which, now this is a very important question even for your prelims, that what is the Brahmaputra river called in China? So it is exactly the same river to which we call Brahmaputra, but it is called as Yarlung Zangbo River in China. So China has said that a 300 billion kilowatt in Midong County, Tibet, and India will be building a 10 gigawatt hydropower plant project in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, why at all are we discussing the building of this dam? Because in another situations we are very happy when any kind of hydropower project comes, because we believe that it will solve the problem of energy or the crisis of energy. It will help us to move towards renewable sources of energy. It will reduce the pollution. It will help us in various types of activities. But why are these two projects, and specifically the Chinese project, which is this huge, which is 300 billion kilowatt in Midong County, Tibet, a very big issue of concern? So basically the concern here is that both these dams would actually lie in the very high seismic zone with high population concentration in the Himalayan region. So there are two things that we need to consider. That firstly, this area where these dams would be constructed, this area is highly seismic in nature, which means it is very much prone to earthquakes. And not only this, it is highly populated as well. So if in case something happens to these dams, or due to the earthquake these dams break, a huge population would be at stake. And so this actually is a very big concern. So the landslides and glacial lake outbursts are common. So in these areas, due to the movement of the lands, now we'll understand the small portion of tectonic movements which actually causes these high seismic zone in the very next slide. So landslides and glacial lake outbursts are very common phenomena in this region. Heavy siltation reduces water holding capacity. This is a very big issue over here, because see, what happens is that when you try to bar any kind of water flow in the river, so it actually stops a lot of not only the water but also heavy siltation, which means a lot of sedimentation takes place, due to which the burden or the pressure on the dam increases a lot. Now I'll give you a very small example to it. See, if you're trying to sieve some kind of tea, okay, from any kind of sieve, so if you are putting a lot of tea into it, and now the waste material which we do not need, the tea bag or it can be the tea leaves, so if they get hugely collected into your sieve, so definitely the water will not be able to move properly, firstly, which actually will create a pressure on the sieve. So this is almost a similar phenomena in the cases of dams as well, but it is thousands and millions of times greater than this pressure which we are talking about. So heavy siltation reduces water holding capacity of the dam as well, and it increases the pressure, which ultimately can lead to breakage of that dam too. Also, it will be a huge issue for the water dependent states in Arunachal, Assam, Meghalaya, and other, and the entire area of Bangladesh as well, which is heavily dependent on the water coming from Brahmaputra River. But now, if this 300 billion kilowatt hydro project would be built in Tibet by China, so a lot of water will be actually already consumed and will be kept with China, and very less of water and more of siltation will only move towards the downward areas. So 15% of great earthquakes of the 20th century occurred in the Himalayan region, and they were of magnitude 7 and above. Now you can understand that what was the intensity of these earthquakes that have taken place in this region. So in 1950, the earthquake had taken place. It had 8.6 magnitude on the Richter scale. In 2015, the Gorkha earthquake, which we all know about, the central Nepal earthquake, it was 7.8, and we all know the destruction that it had caused. So Nepal lost around 20% of its hydropower capacity, and there was damage of around $200 million. So these are the projects that have been taken up in Himalaya. India has taken a 600 megawatt calming project on Bichom and Tenga rivers. So these rivers and their location should also be known. And 2000 megawatt Subansiri lower hydro project, electric project. And China has completed 11 out of the 55 projects which had planned for the Tibet region. Now, Himalayas have seen the highest rate of deforestation and land use changes. So, the solution to this is that Himalayas should be converted to nature reserve by international agreements. And rather than building these dams in this region, we should be protecting the ecology and environment of this entire area. Now, this is what we were talking about. So, as you know, this is the Indian side. This is the Nepal side, Kathmandu. This is the Chinese side. So here, this river, as you can see, the blue one, is Brahmaputra river. So it flows all the way from China, crosses Tibet, enters India through Arunachal Pradesh, and then it crosses Assam as well, and also enters the country Bangladesh. So this area, as you can see, the red pink area, it's into very high and very high region of seismic activity. Now this is somewhat the place where the construction over here, this is called as the Great Bend over here. This is somewhat here the construction of this dam would be done by China. It is planning it over here. So already the water pressure is very high over here. Secondly, it is just at the time where it enters Arunachal Pradesh. Thirdly, you can see the colors. It is red, pink, and brown. So it is all the pink, red, and brown all are into high and very high hazard or seismic areas. So this is a very huge probability that any earthquake over here, and trust me, just a small tremor over here can also cause, because here a small tremor or a little shaking will also cause a huge impact on the area. So this has to be kept in mind, because it should be done. Any sensible country, any sensible person, before any kind of construction, we get the entire checking done of the land, of the seismic activity over there. So that is why even once we are building such a huge dam over here, definitely this seismic sensitivity of the area should be kept in mind. So now, why this area is very much seismic? So why earthquakes occur a lot in this area? This is a very important question for us to understand. It's a very easy concept. As we know that there are plates which we call as the tectonic plates in our earth. So we have 7 major tectonic plates, and we have a lot of minor tectonic plates. So basically this is the Indian plate, and this one, the entire one from here, as you can see, basically it is also known as the Indian plate or the Indo-Australian plate. So the Indo-Australian plate, and this is a Eurasian plate. And this exactly is the area where the Indo-Australian plate and Eurasian plate collide with each other. And this is the very reason why Himalayas were formed. So once, maybe a billion of years ago, a collision took place between the Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate, due to which the Himalayas were actually formed. Yes, it is difficult to believe, but that is the real truth. So because now here, obviously they have not got stuck with each other, and there is still friction and movement between the both of these plates. That is why this area, this entire Himalayan region, now as you can see, you can correspond it with this red line over here, which is the boundary of these two plates, and the exactly same red area over here, which is high seismic zone area. So this actually causes a lot of seismic activity in this region, and that is why, as you can see, all these regions which are towards the southern part of India, they're all into low hazards, and even it is said that there is hardly any chance that ever in the future there will be an earthquake in this region. So, but this again, as we move upwards towards the Himalayas, the chances of the seismic activity increase. So yes, I hope the concept of this is clear to you all. So with this, let's discuss the final article for the day, which talks about tackling air pollution. So over the past decade, India has made significant progress in monitoring air pollution. And just on Saturday or day before that, we discussed about the Paris Agreement, and that India has been a very active contributor in through its national credits or through its national contributions that it has been giving. So currently, there are more than 250 continuous ambient air quality monitoring stations and more than 800 ambient air quality monitoring stations in India. So we are trying to do a lot in curbing the air pollution to purify the air, but still there are some innovative steps and initiatives that can be taken in this direction. So we need to have an increased budget allocation in 2021. Now this is something which, for every problem when we discuss, be it the education, be it the sanitation, be it the higher education, and even if we talk about the curbing of air pollution, the first thing that comes to our mind is that we need to have good funds, good budget in our hand. So it says that for 2020 and 21, we need to have increased budget allocation for tackling the problem of air pollution. Then establishment of commission for air quality, which will actually look into the entire nitty-gritties of this whole movement. Quality management with penal provisions. This is the point that makes it a different one, that it should have penal provisions as well. Then we should jump from BS4 to BS6 vehicles. Now already we have been doing that, and India is really a very good nation to do that, because from BS4, basically it is Bharat stage 4. It's just, you don't need to get a lot into this. It's just the kind of engine which is used in our vehicles, our motor vehicles. So basically, better or higher the grade, like BS4 to BS6, lesser is the pollution caused through that engine. So till date we were using BS4 engines, but India has directly jumped to BS6 vehicles, and we have actually skipped the stage of BS5, which is a very good news. So that is why we should make sure that we are switching more towards the BS6 vehicles. So now if you'll be buying any new models of new cars, so they will all have BS6 engine, which are less polluting in nature. Then we should focus on e-mobility. Yes, we should, because now we're doing a lot about e-rickshaws and cars, and the battery driven cars, etc., that actually do not cause any kind of air pollution. Then Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, to increase the use of LPG, because this scheme has already been very successful in our country, and Himachal Pradesh has become actually the first state to have given 100% LPG connection to all the people in the state. So then Indian Agricultural Research Institute Pusa biodecomposer, this is a very good step, which actually if it becomes completely successful, will bring down the problem of stubble burning, because it will help the farmers to use that very stubble in increasing the fertility of the soil at very cheap rates. So once that is done, we hope that the pollution caused due to stubble burning will be reduced. And then the UNDP's startup-led innovations, such as filter-less retrofit device and nature-based solutions. So these are all good steps that should be taken in this direction. So here are some other steps that are needed. Leverage advanced digital technologies such as geospatial technology and artificial intelligence. Now, these things also help us a lot into tackling problems through, satellites, or we can understand that what is the trade or what is the trend of the environment going on in some particular area, like the heat waves or something like that. And accordingly, we can take the actions as well. Then provide an enabling ecosystem for innovations to address context-specific air pollution challenges. Yes, we should. Then allocate resources to support testing, certifying, and scaling innovative solutions. And we should extend support to IPR as well, because if at all, now very recently, I'll give you a very a close example. I'll share with you. Very recently, there is a person who I know who's actually working as a scientist in Pantnagar University. So his entire team has actually developed a complete system for treating or for efficiently using the electronic waste. So e-waste, as we know, is a very big problem, and many times people tend to burn a lot of e-waste, which causes very different kinds of air pollution. So that has been supported, and they have also got the patent for their device which they have developed. So in a way, the IPR, or the intellectual property rights, incentivize the people or the people who are working in this research direction to do more and innovate better. Then mobilize private sector participation as well. So obviously this is the need of the hour. With this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. National Family Health Survey 2019-20. So malnutrition in several states recorded worsening levels of child malnutrition. So the parameters that were included were child stunting, child wasting, share of children underweight, and child mortality rate. So we know we have been tackling with malnutrition, and India still is on the way to tackle it, and we're still not able to do a lot because even in the global hunger index we have not really fared well. So in the urban rural gender gaps in internet use, so the other finding was that in the urban rural areas the gender gaps are seen in the use of internet. So on an average, less than 3 out of 10 women in rural India and 4 out of 10 women in urban India ever use the internet. So just understand, even in the urban areas the situation is not too good. Like, many times we say that women who are living in the urban areas, they're more equipped with the internet, the technology and stuff like that, but still you can see, according to the survey, only 4 out of 10 women in the urban areas also ever used internet for their use. Now only 42.6% women used internet as against 62.16% men. So even gender disparities here in this regard as well. Obviously, the resources available, the chances to use the internet, working labor force, all of these are very much are things that on which this is dependent. So the highest was in Goa and Himachal, and lowest was in Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. So these facts are very handy when you write your answer in the mains exam or even in the essay as well. So please keep them in mind. So finally, for the slides PDF, and please join our Telegram group. So basically, it is called as the LawSikho Judiciary Test Prep, or the Prep Judiciary Prep Support Group, which is the inner circle. So you definitely can be a part of it. So you can visit www.lawsikho.com for any other information as well. So the other links of our groups are there in the description box too. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come.